Hello, lovelies. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about gate or gene key 12. Before I get too far into it, just letting you know that I have a few new offerings available. There is a download below for a boundary guide meditation, as well as a sign up for a free workshop series. It's messages from the fairy realm that I will be creating very shortly once I have a little bit more space in my schedule. And those will be free workshops that I'll be offering to people, as well as a new website available around my new work that I've been called to do in the world, along with the counseling and the gene keys. So check that out all below. All right, let's get into gene key 12. So gene key 12 is in the throat, and it connects to the emotional solar plexus through gate 22. And this is individual sensing circuitry, and through the connection to 22 creates the channel of grace. And it is in the astrological sign of Gemini. This gate name in quantum language is known as the channel. In traditional language, it's known as caution. And in the I Ching, it's in some schools or some interpretations, it's known as caution. In my interpretation, it's known as clogging. So if you're watching this in the transit or at any point, there's an opportunity with gate 12 to honor yourself enough to wait for the right timing and the right emotional frequency or mood to speak, to share what you have to say, to share what you know. Sometimes the throat sometimes has the pressure to speak too soon, especially if it's undefined or if you're a projector. And so there's a real benefit to learning how to sit with the discomfort of that pressure to speak and learning to tap into right timing around that. Shyness, if you feel shy to speak, that can be a sign that just the timing isn't right for you to share what you have to share. And when the timing is right, which you will learn through your own unique authority, as well as tapping into knowing right timing. For me, I really experience right timing. It's like something just clicks into place, especially when it has to do with sharing something out in the world or moving. I have a wide open G center, so I think that has part to do with that. On the shadow frequency of gate 12, this is where we find that forcing to try to speak your ideas into the world, or a feeling paralyzed by not wanting to share too much. And what can happen in there is there's this struggle, this internal struggle to speak before the ideas are ready to come through. On the fullest expression of this gate, you will have been able to tap into the courage to wait, right? Sometimes FOMO kicks in and we're like, I need to say the thing before I miss out or someone else says it. And it can be a really courageous act to actually wait until right timing, right? Because then we have to sit a little bit with our own stress or anxiety around that. It's also about knowing that your voice is powerful and will create transformation in your right people. It's not going to create transformation in everyone or plant seeds in everyone, but it will in your right people. And language is incredibly powerful. Think about spelling. We say we spell words, right? And then you think of how a spell is used in magic, right? You cast a spell. The origin of the word abracadabra is from the Aramaic, and it means, and I'm probably going to butcher this right now because I don't have it right in front of me, but it means to speak and it will be created, something along those lines. And so our words, we know through different studies that have been done on the power of the frequencies of words to water, that our words create meaning and they craft spells in our world. So knowing that when you speak, to be as deliberate as possible. Now, this doesn't mean taking words out of your vocabulary, but just understanding the power of them. On the gene key side of this, we have what Richard Rudd calls a pure heart. The shadow is vanity, the gift is discrimination, and the city is purity. Vanity, Richard Rudd describes as the love of your own uniqueness and the learning to love yourself, which is interesting to me when I was contemplating this, because there is a lot in the world that talks about you gotta love yourself, right? And Richard Rudd, when he speaks about vanity, he speaks about the love, the self-love that stops being vanity when you learn to love everyone else too. And I mean, challenging, right? That's challenging when we see the shadows of the collective and ourselves out there in the world. It's challenging to love everyone else too. Vanity fears being in the heart and coming from the heart because vanity holds a sense of power. And when we come from the heart, this is why Richard Rudd named this gene key a pure heart. There is no power struggle or better than or different than that happens. We can also see this vanity being expressed as loving the sound of your own voice or isolating your voice and choking back what is being called to be said. And it's an interesting thought. Like, I was really thinking about this because, and just letting this percolate for me, because we live in this paradox, right? Where we all know we are one on some grand concept, but at the same time, we are very individual identities and experiences and expressions of that oneness. And so when we see ourselves as separate than, or different than, or better than, this can cause that vanity shadow. I've been up since 2 o'clock in the morning now that I'm filming this, so my words aren't working as well as they normally do. And I also loved how Richard Rudd said in this is that it's often an over-identification with the higher self. Now, this is tricky because those of us on this ascension, evolution journey, spiritual journey, there's often the wording of your higher self and this connection with your higher self and learning to trust the higher self. And sometimes we can see in different communities where there's judgment around people who are not as connected to the higher self or are not following their strategy and authority, and that there's this messaging, and it's not always overt, sometimes it's very subtle, that if you are further along, whatever that means, on your evolutionary path, that somehow you are better on a hierarchical sense, right? Every time we talk about the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, even though those dimensions are just about how fast the particles in us move and how much light we hold. And let me know if you don't agree with this. But I really find that there's this element underneath it that's just this sense, because I don't think I've actually ever heard anyone say this, but there's this sense that if you're further along, or if it's even that language, or if you are more regularly connected to your higher self, that somehow you are better, which I think speaks to this vanity shadow. I'm going to move on because I feel like I could stay in that for a while. So, on this journey to the gift of discrimination, it's calling us to turn inwards and connecting to the heart. And this is directly related to the breath and our emotions. Because when we breathe, especially if you intend to breathe your oxygen into the heart actually calms down. And when the heart beats at a rhythmic pattern, the EKG patterns, the frequency of the brain waves will match the heart. And so this brings us out of the head of judgment and into the heart, which can connect with all sorts on that level. This journey is also inviting us to turn inwards and embracing that we all hold a vanity inside of us, that we all have this shadow that is playing out in the world, because it wouldn't be playing out in the world if we didn't at some level hold this shadow inside of us, where we are judging and putting people on different hierarchical levels. And when you can do that and really really acknowledge that you play a part of the shadow that's happening out in the world, there's a deep humbling that occurs. You kind of, it's a felt sense for me where you just kind of sink, and you're just like, every judgment, every negative thought, everything that you've also been through and experienced just kind of falls away. And I think this is where Richard Rudd talks about where we have breakthroughs. So the gift is known as discrimination. I personally prefer the word discernment, and because I use that word personally myself a lot. And it's about knowing what and who is inherently healthy for you. And it's about falling in love and engaging with the love of life, of what lights you up, who lights you up, what inspires you, who inspires you. And it's about being able to be in touch with your emotions and communicate those to others. And there's a paradox, as there is in everything. And my guides, the Fae, speak to this. They spoke to this here for me. And they speak of this paradox. I mean, the Fae they're a very playful paradox of what life is like on this planet. And they talk about how we are all one and we are all different. Everything is good and everything is bad. And that's really challenging for the human mind to understand. And in this context of this archetype, it's important to have a balance between your own self-identity and your connection to others. Both are equally important and can help you navigate the journey towards the gift of discernment. It's not about discounting the self, and it's not about discounting others. It's about moving through the natural balance and continued rebalancing of life, which brings us, I think, which is where that navigation on a human level can feel so challenging to do. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and I wish you a very beautiful day.